The Betrayal Papers, Part 5. Who is Barack Hussein Obama? The Betrayal Papers have thus far investigated and explained the Obama administration and their alliance with the international terrorist organization, the Muslim Brotherhood. The articles analyzed several aspects of White House policy, foreign and domestic, and compared them to the objectives of the Muslim Brotherhood. Parts 5 and 6 explore the personal ties that bind Obama, as well as the progressive American left, to the Muslim Brotherhood. This is a portrait of a conspiracy that has reached unprecedented heights of global control. A riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. Has there ever been a president whose personal history is so murky, so questionable, and so baffling? All one must do is recall the allegations, still open for debate and research, that checker Obama's background. Laid out now are some of these allegations, not to be proved or disproved, but to remind you that Obama's personal history is replete with question marks. A 1991 promotional literary pamphlet featured a short biographical sketch of Obama and claimed that he was born in Kenya and raised in Indonesia and Hawaii. What is his actual name? The only publicly available school record for Obama lists him as an Indonesian citizen named Barry Sotoro. Moreover, on an immigration document from 1965, Obama's mother included the name Sobarka under Barack Hussein Obama. This is likely a name given to him by the Islamic cult of Subud, to which his mother proudly and openly belonged. For a reason yet to be explained, Obama's Social Security number begins with the prefix 042, which corresponds to Connecticut, a state in which Obama has never lived. Regarding his academic records, recall that Obama attended 3 universities: Occidental College, Columbia University, and Harvard University. His academic records with these 3 institutions have never been revealed, despite efforts by investigative reporters. The student body president at Columbia University during Obama's time there, Wayne Allen Root, who at one time was the Libertarian Party vice presidential candidate, has stated publicly that he never met or even heard of Obama while at Columbia, and cannot find any classmates of his who remember him either. Root, like Obama, was a political science major. While campaigning for president, candidate Obama presented himself as a professor of constitutional law while at the University of Chicago. Yet this turned out to be untrue. In fact, he was a senior lecturer, a title and position significantly less prestigious than professor. Finally, the best known and most researched of these allegations is the issue of Obama's birth certificate. From his days as a candidate in the Democrat primary, the place of Obama's birth has been in contention. While Obama has insisted he was born in Honolulu, Hawaii in 1961, there are others who claim he was born in Mombasa, Kenya. There's even a copy of his purported Kenyan birth certificate. Moreover, apparently trustworthy sources swear that the long-form birth certificate is a forgery. All these questions leave the investigator with only one choice: to define Obama not by his inconsistent biographical details, but by his associations and actions. The Communist Prelude, Frank Marshall Davis, Obama's mentor. As documented extensively in Paul Kengor's book, The Communist, Davis ranks high among Obama's early life influences. A literal card-carrying member of the Communist Party USA, Davis was considered by the FBI an enemy of the state. Frank Marshall Davis, a known Soviet communist and admirer of Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler, was a friend of Obama's mother's father, Stanley Dunham. The communist Davis lived in both Hawaii and in Chicago. He was Barack Obama's mentor through the 1970s until his departure for Occidental College in 1979. Davis was also a pornographer. In his book, Sex Rebel, he wrote excitedly about having sex with minors. Pedophilia was not unusual for communists of the era. Harry Hay, another communist and associate of Davis, was reportedly an advocate of NAMBLA, the National Man-Boy Love Association. In 1995, in a broadcast on Cambridge Municipal Television, Barack Obama described Davis as a close friend of my maternal grandfather, a close friend of Grant, and a fairly well-known poet. Irrespective of the publicly accepted, sanitized biography of young Obama, the historical facts establish that his primary political mentor was a Soviet communist sex offender introduced to him by his mother's family. Tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. George Soros, also known as Georgi Schwartz, is the Hungarian-born billionaire investor and financier behind a tangled constellation of progressive front organizations. Among these front organizations are the Open Society Foundation Institute, ACORN, Progress, the Center for American Progress, Code Pink, Occupy Wall Street, National Council of La Raza, the Tides Foundation, MoveOn.org, the New America Foundation, and the International Crisis Group. As one writer wrote succinctly in 2011, quote, essentially, the entire leftist wing of the Democrat Party, including the president, can be tied to George Soros in some way. Soros was born in 1930 in Budapest, Hungary, to a Jewish family. He grew up in wartime Hungary and was an admitted Nazi collaborator who turned other Jews over to the Nazi authorities. To this day, he has stated that he has no remorse for his actions of turning in Jews to the Nazis and having their property confiscated. As Soros said to 60 Minutes reporter Steve Kroft, it was, quote, the happiest time of my life. Soros is a financial manipulator and a breaker of currencies. In 1992, Soros crashed the British pound when he made a bet it would correct against the Deutsche Mark. Soros has a history of using government influence for personal gain. In 1999, Bill Clinton's Secretary of State Madeleine Albright blocked a $500 million loan by the U.S. Import-Export Bank to the Russian oil company Tyumen. Tyumen planned to use this money to acquire one of Soros's companies and a Siberian oil field. And apparently, Soros felt his deal wasn't sweet enough. A few months later, Albright did indeed approve the loan, but only after Soros was guaranteed additional protections for his interests at the expense of Tyumen. This pattern repeated in 2009 when the U.S. Import-Export Bank announced a preliminary commitment to loan $2 billion to the Brazilian oil giant Petrobras. This caused the shares in the company to rise 27.9% from April 2009 to August 2009, which was the time of the announcement. Soros, a major shareholder in the company, profited handsomely. In 2002, French authorities prosecuted Soros for insider trading. In 2012, the government of Russia issued an arrest warrant for Soros for violating Basel II financial regulations. Obama's foreign policy and the Arab Spring are intertwined with Soros' interests. In 2008, the International Crisis Group, also known as ICG, a Soros front, issued a paper that urged the Egyptian government to allow the Muslim Brotherhood to form a political party. Anyone with knowledge of the Muslim Brotherhood's activities in Egypt from the 1940s onward, which include assassinations and terrorism, understands the necessity of the Egyptian government's hard line on the terror group. Interestingly, ICG is also home to Ambassador Thomas Pickering, the Obama administration's lead investigator for Benghazi, as well as Robert Malley, who was recently appointed by Obama to a prominent position to lead Middle East policy, despite a history of connections to Hamas. In a 2011 op-ed for the Washington Post, Soros himself referred to Israel, not Hamas, as the stumbling block in Middle East peace. In the same piece, Soros encouraged the Muslim Brotherhood to be given a seat at the table in Egyptian political life and urged Obama to support the Arab Spring overthrow of ally Mubarak. All the nefarious personal relationships of Barack Hussein Obama, the bloodthirsty couple of Bill Ayers and wife Bernadine Dorn, are the most unsettling. In the 1960s, Ayers and Dorn were notorious radicals, anarchists, and terrorists, declared enemies of American society. Ayers and Dorn hosted a meet and greet and fundraiser for candidate Obama when he first ran for public office. Indeed, Obama's political career was launched from the couple's living room in Hyde Park. Bill Ayers' father was Tom Ayers, president of Commonwealth Edison, the power company of Chicago, from 1964 to 1980, and chairman from 1973 to 1980. The Ayers family was close to the corrupt daily political machine and involved in various philanthropic causes, and Bill was a son of considerable privilege. The Ayers family connection to power production is important to note in connection with the Chicago Climate Exchange, which was detailed in Part 6. Despite his mainstream upbringing, Ayers gravitated to terrorism and revolution. In 1969, he and Dorn and other radicals founded the Weather Underground. From its inception until the early 1980s, this group of nihilist anarchists would claim responsibility for targets that included police, an ROTC building, the home of a judge, New York City Police Headquarters, and the Pentagon. Dorn and Ayers lived for a time as fugitives together and eventually married. But due to legal technicalities, neither Ayers nor Dorn ever served time for their crimes. The couple has two sons. Both were, curiously, given Islamic names, Zaid and Malik. Ayers has admitted not once but twice that he is the author of the Obama memoir, Dreams from My Father, a story of race and inheritance, published in 1995. On September 11, 2001, a review of an upcoming book by Bill Ayers appeared in the New York Times. In the memoir, Fugitive Days, Ayers recounted his time on the lam. Wrote Ayers in the book, the lines which were reprinted in the Times on the morning of September 11th, quote, "Everything was absolutely ideal on the day I bombed the Pentagon. I feel we didn't do enough." A few hours after that edition of the New York Times hit newsstands on 9/11/2001, 4 planes were hijacked by Al-Qaeda. 2 of them brought down the World Trade Center. Another crashed in a field in Pennsylvania, and the other slammed into the Pentagon, once a target of Bill Ayers, scarring the symbol of American military might and killing 125 people. Consider the psyche of Dorn, From 1991 to 2013, a professor at Northwestern Law School who, upon hearing of the horrific murder of actress Sharon Tate, where a fork was stuck into her 9-month pregnant belly by psychopath Charles Manson's gang, stated, quote, "Dig it. First they killed those pigs, and then they put a fork in Pig Tate's belly. Wild." Then adopted the fork salute for the Weathermen. Years after 9/11/2001, Dorn and Ayers would openly associate with Islamic terrorists, first in connection with the 2010 Peace Flotilla, a terrorist smuggling operation originating from Turkey that sought to arm Hamas in Gaza. The rabid couple's attraction to terrorism was enabled by the Soros front group Code Pink. In 2011, Ayers and Dorn teamed up with Code Pink once again when they crashed the revolution in Egypt's Tahrir Square to help oust American and Israeli ally Hosni Mubarak. Reliving their youth, they pulled a page from their old playbook, teaching the protesters how to organize their very own day of rage. No figure in the administration holds more sway over Barack Obama than his senior advisor, Valerie Jarrett. Officially in charge of the Offices of Public Engagement and Intergovernmental Affairs, her Twitter handle, VJ44, as in Valerie Jarrett, 44th President, conveys a truer sense of her power. Yet, not even one American voted for President Jarrett. Valerie June Bowman Jarrett was born in Shiraz, Iran in 1956 to James and Barbara Taylor Bowman. An examination of Jarrett's family is the key to understanding her influence in Chicago. Jarrett's father, James, a Howard University graduate, was, at the time of her birth, working as a physician and geneticist in Iran. Her mother, Barbara's family, is deeply connected to Chicago politics. Jarrett's maternal grandfather was Robert Taylor, who was on the board of the Chicago Housing Authority, a municipal corporation. To this day, the Robert Taylor Homes, a public housing project, bears his name. A political appointment, Jarrett was not subjected to confirmation by the U.S. Senate. Yet, according to every published account, it is she who is the true center of gravity in the administration, ranging from health care reform to negotiating with terrorist Iran. The senior advisor, not the president, calls the shots at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The few murmurings which have come out regarding Jarrett's omnipresence in the White House have not been flattering. According to one former administration official, quote, "It's pretty toxic. She went to whatever meeting she wanted to go to, basically all of them, and then would go and whisper to the president, or at least everyone believed she did. People don't trust the process. They think she's a spy." Even Obama's former chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, according to author Jonathan Alter, was, quote, "tired of being undermined by Valerie Jarrett" when he resigned from his position. Given Jarrett's political force in the Capitol, the media's curiosity about Jarrett's background, governing principles, ideological beliefs, and business dealings has been conspicuously lacking. One of Robert Taylor's partners was Rufus Cook. Rufus's ex-wife, Anne, is a cousin of Jarrett's. Cook is also a legal counsel for Louis Farrakhan's Nation of Islam, based out of Chicago. In 2007, the country was shocked when a video emerged that showed the pastor of Obama's church, Reverend Wright of Trinity United Church of Christ, saying of September 11th, 2001, "Americans' chickens are coming home to roost." This was a borrowed line originally spoken by the Nation of Islam's silver-tongued spokesman, Malcolm X, referring to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Indeed, the Trinity United Church of Christ's Reverend Wright and Nation of Islam's Louis Farrakhan are as thick as thieves. In 1984, Wright and Farrakhan traveled together to Libya to meet the mad dog of the Middle East, Muammar Gaddafi. Another Jarrett cousin is Antoinette Tony Bush, daughter of Rufus and Ann Cook. In 2013, Tony, a Chicago lawyer, was hired as the head lobbyist for News Corp, owner of Fox News. This is perhaps why Jarrett has been spotted dining with News Corp CEO, Australian Rupert Murdoch. Jarrett's family has direct connections to Obama's communist mentor, Frank Marshall Davis. Jarrett's father-in-law, Vernon Jarrett, was a journalist who worked with Frank Marshall Davis, his Citizens Committee to Aid Packing House Workers. In his younger years, explains Paul Kengor, Vernon Jarrett had been elected to the Illinois Council of American Youth for Democracy, the Communist Party USA Youth Wing. Finally, Robert Taylor was on the board of Chicago Civil Liberties Union with Frank Marshall Davis. Jarrett, who met Obama in 1991 and introduced him to Michelle, is a part of their family. Given her connections and power, is it any surprise that she recently said to the New York Times Magazine, quote, "I intend to stay in the White House until the lights go off." Antoine Tony Rezko is the Chicago-based Syrian-American slumlord who arranged a corrupt deal for the Obamas' home. Rezko, who is currently serving a 10.5-year prison sentence and was known for influence peddling through bribery, crafted a special deal in which he loaned money to the Obamas and donated to their campaign organization, all while setting them up in a mansion in Hyde Park. Obama's relationship with the corrupt Rezko goes back decades. Rezko tried to hire Obama to work for his real estate company, Resmar, when he graduated from Harvard Law School. In 2008, Obama stated that Rezko was a friend whom he had known for 20 years. The Chicago Sun-Times estimated that Obama had received $168,308 from Rezko and his circle. In 2005, Rezko arranged the purchase of the Obamas' home in Chicago. Because the Obamas were not in the financial position to purchase the house at the time, Rezko made a deal with the owner to purchase the adjoining empty lot next to the home at above market price to compensate for the Obamas' below market offer on the home, $1.65 million versus the $1.95 asking price. The Rezko case unfolded before the nation as Barack Obama was ascending to the presidency. It embroiled Patrick Fitzgerald, who was previously known for prosecuting Vice President Cheney's chief of staff, Scooter Libby, Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, who was serving a 14-year jail sentence, Obama, and Rezko. The convicted felon Rezko is an associate of international criminal and former Saddam Hussein agent Iraqi Nadmi Auchi. The Iraqi operator Nadmi Auchi is the sort of rarefied sort of gentleman you would normally come across in a spy novel. On the surface, Nadmi Auchi is a business magnate, a dynamo philanthropist, and an honored citizen of many countries. As was explained by a former senior official of the Defense, State, and Commerce Departments, John A. Shaw, Mr. Auchi made a name for himself as the international financier and arms dealer extraordinaire of Saddam Hussein. By 1980, Auchi was an asset of the British Foreign Intelligence Service, MI6. So multifaceted is this billionaire mystery man that he has his own dedicated WikiLeaks page. Ouchie and Tony Rezko were partners in real estate and pizza. Contemporary to the timeline of Obama's political rise in Chicago, Ouchie was building an influence operation one brick at a time in the very same city. His ties from the Middle East to America's Midwest made his enterprise a conduit of Middle Eastern money into the United States of America. Shaw writes, quote, Nadmi Ouchie, despite his purchased respectability in England, was the financial eminence behind the Chicago Arab Combine and the man who, with Rezko, helped invent Barack Obama as a political star, close quote. Through Tony Rezko, his local bagman, financed and guided Obama and Jarrett into the Oval Office. While a large shareholder in BNP Paribas, Ouchie was involved with the UN oil for food scandal, which was based on the sale of Iraqi oil. In 2004, Ouchie was banned from entering the U.S. for scamming the Pentagon on an Iraqi cellular deal he helped broker. After securing rights to Iraq's cellular services, Ouchie went on to corner the market on power contracts for the post-war transition as well. If Soros personifies the progressive wing of Obama's politics, it is Ouchie that personifies the wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. Ouchie's stances on litmus test issues tell who he is, politically speaking, in the Middle East. Ouchie is anti-Semitic and led support for the Turkish terror flotilla, an operation which ties him to Bill Ayers, Bernardine Dorn, and George Soros. It may seem an odd dichotomy that two people in low-cost housing, Valerie Jarrett and Tony Rezko, and two artful and sophisticated investors, Ouchie and Soros, both of whom are convicted of financial crimes in France, ushered Obama to the presidency. Yet, each one of these individuals shares one lethal trait. They are masters at using government for their personal gain. Ouchie has a history of suing his critics and silencing those who cause too much trouble. His reputation as an aggressive litigator and someone who won't hesitate to kill may have convinced journalist David Ignatius to think twice about disclosing his knowledge of Ouchie's activities. For instead of a nonfiction book, Ignatius did indeed pen a spy novel, The Bank of Fear, based on Ouchie's career. Rashid Khalidi is an anti-Semitic professor and historian of Palestine. Khalidi is currently the Edward Said Professor of Arab Studies at Columbia University. During their Chicago years, the Obamas were close friends with Khalidi and his wife, Mona. They were also friends with Edward Said, Khalidi's mentor. Throughout the 1970s, when Khalidi taught at the University of Beirut, he routinely spoke on behalf of Yasser Arafat's terrorist Palestinian Liberation Organization. The Obamas and the Khalidis have been friends for decades. When in Chicago, the Obamas regularly dined with the Khalidis. In 1998, the Obamas attended a banquet which featured Edward Said as the keynote speaker. Said, a Palestinian American who is now deceased, had long been a critic of the State of Israel, which he referred to as being in illegal military occupation since 1967. In 2000, the Khalidis held a fundraiser for Obama when he was running for Congress. The following year, the Woods Foundation, where Obama served as a board member, donated $40,000 to Mona Khalidi's charity. As one pro-Palestinian activist phrased it in 2008, when Obama's views on Israel and Palestine were a subject of controversy, quote, I am confident that Barack Obama is more sympathetic to the position of ending the occupation than either of the other candidates, close quote. With the benefit of more than 6 years of hindsight, it is clear that Barack Hussein Obama, with the eager cooperation of Secretary of State John Kerry, has been the most anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian president in United States history. In conclusion, a man does not become president of the United States without very high-powered connections. Usually, these connections are accumulated through a long career of public service, whether in the U.S. Congress, executive, or on the state level. Obama rose to the presidency after serving a scant 4 years in the U.S. Senate, 2 of which were spent running for president. Prior to that, he served an unremarkable 7 years in the Illinois State Senate. Before launching his political career in the living room of American anarchists, Obama was a community organizing lawyer for progressive groups. Among them was ACORN, which was instrumental in creating the housing bubble. With such little authentic biography available, we are forced to define Obama by his friends. They include financial and political manipulators and fixers, international criminals, card-carrying communists, and FBI identified enemies of the state, terrorists, foreign and domestic, and their academic apologists. Part 6 will conclude the Betrayal Papers with a look at the various interconnected schemes of the above-named Obama associates. The Betrayal Papers is a collaborative effort by the Coalition of Concerned Citizens. The entire Betrayal Paper series is available at theamericanreport.org.